Hey everyone, welcome back to Winden. Today we're going to be working on a variety of different things and working in a bunch of different locations as well as we try and finish and wrap up Winden in 1953 before we can move on to the city and modernizing it in 1986 and then eventually modern day, since that is the point of the series, or at least one main point. And this is already the third episode, right? Working in 1953, since of course the point is, I have to build the city first before I can modernize it. And I wanted to do no more than 3 episodes, at least in 1953, before moving on to 86 in modern day. But after this episode, you'll see in the cinematics, especially the very last shot, when I show a nice overview of everything, you'll see there is still a good amount left. I mean, there's mostly, pretty much everything has been built. There's still a few locations, mostly on this side of the river, with the train station that is still empty and needs to be filled in with some stuff. But my question to you guys, since I wanted to pose this to you guys earlier on in the episode so I can get some more responses, but I'm wondering if you would like to see one more episode of Winden in 1953 before we move on to 1986 and modernizing it. So obviously, one way or another, I'm going to have to fill in a lot of this stuff. If you don't want to see another episode in this time period, then I'll do it all off camera. And then, of course, moving into the next time period will be the next episode. But otherwise, there's still a few things to build, different that, I haven't necessarily built yet that, would be cool enough for an episode most likely. So yeah, let me know what you think on that. And if you want to see another episode in 1953, or if you want the next one to be in 1986. Let me know on that, and I will do my best to try and do whatever you all want. But anyways, that was just wanted to get that down at the start of the episode. But what we are doing here on screen is finally working on the opposite side of the river. Up until now, everything has been built completely on the opposite side of the river, at least on camera. I pretty much only laid out some of the roads on this side and place the train tracks down here when, of course, I wanted to work out where the tracks are going to go when I first started out the series. But so it was definitely time to come over this way and start working on stuff. And I figure the train station is, certainly important to any European city, almost of any size. So what I decided to use was this station here, a relatively new one by Gens, I believe. And what's kind of cool with it is when you convert it to procedural objects, a couple of the platforms actually disappear. So that's convenient because, when we move in time, right, to 86 in modern day, I can just completely delete the train station and just plop down the asset not converted to PO, right? So just a normal asset, and it'll have a few more platforms added onto it. So that's just going to be an easy, convenient way to, grow the station without having to do too much and focus on it too much. Since in the show Dark, there's no picture, there's the train station's never mentioned or shown in the show. So I initially wasn't even going to include it. I was just going to do a quick little easy thing off camera, but I figured, again, I don't want to do everything exactly the same way as the show, since I know many of you have not seen it, so I want to make this enjoyable for everyone. And a train station is a pretty cool build, I guess, even though I do keep this one still pretty simple nonetheless. I don't really add too much to it. Added that one train shed, just simple small thing. Other than that, I mean, there wasn't really too much to do. I just added some of those decals there and the trees out front just to make it look a little nicer. But other than that, I'm really relying more so on progressing through time. So as we move on into closer to modern day, I'll probably work a little more on the train station, add some cooler things, and, make it a little more fancier, I suppose. So at least that's the plan for the train station. But this entire area here on the opposite side of the river, I'm thinking of it being more of a much newer area, right? On the other side of the river, of course, we have the old town and a whole lot more other stuff that would be there much longer, probably closer to the town's founding. But as you can see here, I'm placing this Bauhaus from Dessau, I believe it is. And it's a very nice asset, and I definitely had to use it since it really is a really nice asset. Like, I don't know, I can't remember the creator. Sorry to whoever that is, but good job on this. The details on everything from the roof down to the staircases looks really, really nice. So I definitely had to use this one, and I think since like I said, it's in Dessau, I believe. And I looked at that city, just to see where it was located and, its surroundings, just trying to get a accurate feel of, what this area would look like, since, this is all quite new to me, building in this type of style and using these types of buildings, which I'm still, I'm definitely enjoying this. And I have to say, in the end, this area came out quite well, what we've built so far on this side of the river. Even though, like I said, there's still quite a lot left at the end, but what we do have built, I think, turns out quite nice. But I wanted to keep this pretty simple, which is something I've done with the other, when I built the other Bauhaus settlement on the other side of the river, I think in the first episode. But I wanted to keep that relatively simple. And looking on Google Maps at this particular building in real life, it was actually very, very simple as well. So just these paths running next to and along the buildings and some open green grass areas. But other than that, there was very, very few trees or anything like that. Just very nice, upkept, manicured lawns and such like that. So that's more or less what I stuck with. And like I said, I think it turned out pretty good. So I'm definitely happy with this one. But one thing I also wanted to mention, which I could have brought up earlier, but the FPS in the city is already pretty rough. I mean, if I just zoom out right and look at the city from a medium distance, I get about the same FPS as I do get in Berlin Noir, so 5 to 6 frames per second about, which, considering the size of the city, is quite bad. And the culprit is absolutely the trees. I have a ton of trees for the forest, and I'm not sure what tree it is, but one of those trees is most definitely not optimized to be FPS friendly whatsoever. I don't know which one it is, and I'm very happy with how all the trees look, so I don't really want to experiment and, get rid of some trees, because I think overall the forest looks good, and the forest is definitely pretty important to this town. How I want it to look, of course. I want it to be very foresty, surrounded by a thick green forest. So I'm definitely keeping that. But the point is, when we do eventually move on into the next time period, I'm wondering how easy it is going to be to copy and paste everything, right? Which is my original plan, to copy the entire city as it is in 1953, and then paste it onto a different part of the map, which I showed up a picture in the very first episode where it's kind of just divided into a pie, right? Just 3 equal parts, and each part being a different time period. So when I copy and paste it, I'm kind of worried that, I don't know, it's not going to work really well, just because I know with my experience in Berlin Noir from the very start of the series, when I was messing around with some stuff and copying and pasting a bunch of things, I ran into some issues for sure, and considering how low the FPS is already, I don't know, hopefully it's going to work out, and I haven't tried it, so, this is purely speculation. I just want to, let you guys know that it's possible I'm not going to be able to do that. If not, it's still going to work out, because I'll just continue building in the same area, of course, and modernizing it. We'll just miss out on what I kind of thought would be really cool, which is having all 3 cities in the same map, right? In 3 different, or the same city, I should say, not 3 cities. The same city in 3 different time periods on the same map, which was the original idea. But if not, either way, hopefully it'll work out. But yeah, like I said, I haven't tried it out yet, so when I do, we'll see. Hopefully it works. But anyways, moving on from that, what we got going on here is just another, multiple family apartment building, I suppose these are called. I don't really know. I would just call these apartments, but I'm not really sure if they have a special name in Germany, since I was basing this particular design and just similarity to what was nearby the Bauhaus from Dessau. And so that's why that's where I got the inspiration for this particular little area. Just a bunch of hedges and stuff. And I don't know, I was feeling when I was building this particular spot, not very motivated in detailing it very well. I'm not really sure why. Just because I feel like I've been doing a lot of the similar type of stuff, especially with the suburbs, which, just have a bunch of hedges, some, fences or walls, and then, just a lot of that fairly repetitive, which, when in the end, they look very, very nice. I love the look of German suburbs, but, building them in the game is definitely repetitive, quite tedious, and, when you do it multiple times, it can get a little boring. But yeah, so like I said, I was keeping it pretty simple, just with these hedges here, and then dragging just these little stone pathways between all the buildings, since I tried my best to capture the realism and such, that I was drawing inspiration from the location in Dessau, but again, very repetitive with just this type of detailing, and which, compared to what I normally do in Berlin Noir, the detailing is certainly very different, because most of the detailing in my main series is not really with the your standard blocks and apartments and just your typical German or Berlin buildings, right? For the most part, I just place the buildings down along the road, do some very, very light stuff in the back and the courtyards and such of all the blocks. But other than that, most of the detailing is reserved for just a few little locations here and there. They're more or cooler, more like important locations or whatever that are important to Berlin. Whereas here, of course, it's a mini series, so I'm trying to keep the level of detailing consistent across all locations. Although already in some of the suburbs, my like I said, it's so repetitive that I've just kind of gone really simple with the detailing and just pretty much laid hedges and trees and not much else, which they're further on the outside of the city, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. Since, for the most part, cinematics and such are going to be focused in the heart of the city and not so much further outside. Because, I also did off camera a very simple, very basic farmland area, since it's definitely pretty important for a small town like this. Pretty much would be surrounded almost by farmland of some kind. So I've only done one small area. I'm probably just going to continue doing that off camera. Just very, very low detail, just using roads and then the surface painter and just different surfaces to get the different colors and variation and such, so it looks like just open land that hasn't been planted yet, or maybe it's been harvested or whatever, versus stuff that actually has stuff growing. So yeah, that was simple, just something off camera. You'll probably, if you look in one of the cinematic shots at the very end, you will see it off in the top left, I believe, of the camera. But other than that, yeah, nothing much, nothing too fancy. But anyways, so we're moving on from that. We are back now to the other side of the river, which we have been focusing on for the past couple episodes. And we're adding another church, since one church in the town is certainly not realistic, not enough. And so this one I am placing still relatively close to the old town, but it's not inside, I would say, the old town. So maybe that's not necessarily the most realistic. I don't know. It's like, I've been looking at, German cities, small cities from all the way, around Germany, really, just for different ideas, inspiration and such. For the most part, I've been looking at Stuttgart and some of the smaller towns are immediately around there. And then I've also recently been looking at stuff in northern Germany, since at least some of the towns I've been looking at, some of that stuff kind of looks more similar to what I'm actually building. and like the location of the churches and such. And so, yeah, I've definitely been using that a little more than cities that I was initially looking at. But yeah, I did still want to do one bigger church that, had a nice, plaza-like area in the front, straight up along the road. And for this one, I decided to go with this church, which I think is from Bucharest. Or, no, Budapest. Sorry, yes, Budapest, I believe. I think. But yeah, I didn't want to go too large again with the church, since I am, trying to get that small town feel, even though, it's, I don't know, the actual town, its size is probably a lot bigger than some of the small towns that I've been basing the city off of. So maybe that's not necessarily super accurate, but I'm still definitely going for a small town feel nonetheless. But what I decided to go or detail with this was use these stone tile networks, whatever you want to call them, and lay kind of like an outline around the church as well as along the sidewalks. And the reason for this is because, unlike most paths in the game, right, paths lay pretty much perfectly, flat against, the ground, right? There's a few paths which are slightly raised, but, they're noticeably raised. Whereas with these paths here, they more or less just look perfectly flat on the ground. But what's nice, as you can see them doing here, is as long as you convert decal to procedural objects, you can just lower it, and then you can, as you see what I'm doing here, just hiding the stone decal under the network. That way you get a nice smooth, transition from the tile along the sidewalk and such. So yeah, this is a fairly common technique that I do like using, since, I wish I could have more variation in this game. I think we all wish that, at least, when it comes to the textures you have for, your cement, right? Or pavement, I guess. It'd be really, really cool if some mod, or in the next, City Skylines game, whenever that comes out, it has an option for like multiple pavement textures. That would be really, really cool, right? So you can have just a standard, modern, simple pavement texture, then maybe have a couple variations of cobblestone and stuff like that. It would be really cool to really, bring your city to life, add a little more realism, since relying on decals like this is tedious and doesn't always work out very well. So, when you do have the opportunity to, do that, it's nice because it definitely adds some element of realism and just, of course, added detail that would otherwise not be there. So, yeah, I think it turned out pretty cool. I'll probably add one more large church. I'm not sure if I should add it on this side of the river or on the other side of the river by the train station. But let me know what you think on that, since, as I already mentioned, I'm building, more newer stuff on the other side of the river with the train station. So, I want those to be a little newer, have a newer feel to it, newer developments and such. But of course, just because there's some newer stuff there doesn't mean it can't have some older things as well. So, if you think I should build a church on that side, I'll probably add, a block or two of, older things and put the church nearby. And, just so, all goes together well and nicely. But yeah, so we're moving on to the final part of the episode, which is further outside the city and into the forest. So what we're doing here is based on the show Dark. In the show, there is a location that's frequently visited, which is just an abandoned train line underneath a bridge. So in real life, it's actually in Potsdam, I believe, or outside Potsdam. And it was going to be an extension of an S-Bahn line, if I'm not mistaken, probably from Berlin. But yeah, so for whatever reason, the construction stopped. They decided not to extend the S-Bahn line that way. So I wanted to include, that type of thing as well here. So, in this case, since, the city only has that one train station, and, I'm not really sure if there would be any, sizable city nearby in which, an S-Bahn or something like that would connect to the city. I'm thinking more this is kind of, you know, further outside, not too much around. So for the most part, it's going to be more larger trains that travel further distances. So probably this train station would be, you know, or not train station, this train line, this track here would probably be more so just, you know, trying to, you know, connect two or a couple cities together with shorter distance. But for whatever reason, you know, they decided to stop construction. And, you know, as I'm now, I'm building it looking as if, you know, it's currently under construction, you know, so adding those sleepers down and the rail extensions here. And for the wooden sleepers there, I had to use timber since I guess I didn't subscribe to Ronick 69's sleepers that he has, which turns out, because I think those are slightly smaller than the actual ones in this network, the track network, and also they look different, the color. And I don't think they're wood either. I don't think so. They could be, but I don't think so. So yeah, I think it turned out well. You know, of course, there's that difference in the color of wood, but you know, I guess that's reasonable. I've seen things where, you know, the wood color changes slightly. You know, for whatever reason, you know, they used a different wood or something cheaper, or ran out of certain type of wood, whatever it may be. So yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. Just something unique in the city. Out, like I said, it's quite a ways outside the heart of the city, so just some, you know, light detailing out in the woods here. Since, you know, I don't want the woods to just be, you know, a bunch of trees everywhere. You know, I want some places here and there in which there's actual life, right? You know, something going on, not just a bunch of trees. And so that brings us to the final thing that we're going to be building in this episode. And this is nearby the thing we just built, the bridge there with the track under construction. And that's going to be here, just a little cabin. So once again, this is also from the show Dark. This is a little cabin out in the woods, as well as I build a bomb shelter. So, you know, I figure, you know, that's also from the show as well, but I'm guessing, you know, that probably was a fairly common thing to have, you know, and back then, it's, you know, in the 50s and 60s, of course, with the Soviet Union, you know, pretty much everywhere in the Western world had bomb shelters. So, you know, it's a nice little added detail. I probably should add, you know, some elsewhere as well, since, like I said, you know, it's 1950s and the Soviets are scary. So yeah, that's a nice added detail to place elsewhere. But I use the vanilla bunker here, which is a bunker, I think, you know, meant to be placed in like the side of a mountain or whatever for like defending against military invasion or such. But I didn't really know what else to use, so I used that, and then I just converted it to BO, shrunk it down, and then I used a piece of metal, a corrugated metal from some, I think, a shack or something like that as the door, since I didn't really know what else to use. I didn't have any prop doors that I was subscribed to, but I think it turns out all right there. But anyways, we are at the end of the episode, and I hope you guys all enjoyed this one. Definitely let me know, again, if you want another episode, one more episode in 1953, or if you think I should move on until 1986 for the next episode. And yeah, so definitely like the video if you enjoyed. Helps out the channel a lot. And if you are new, definitely subscribe for some great content. Anyways, I will see you all next time in another video.